So as Nate mentioned, today is nonlinear calculations, specifically fixture calculations. And it's a topic that I've been excited to talk about for a long time. For years and years, in both AutoCAD, AutoCAD Architecture, and now in Revit, I've had users ask me how you can do this particular workflow in somewhat of an automated form so that they're not doing a bunch of manual takeoffs and manual quantifications externally. So let's go through the PowerPoint here real quick, and then we'll jump into Revit here in just a moment. But as Nate mentioned, feel free to throw questions out there as we're going. I kind of have a feeling that a few of you will have some questions about what it is that I'm doing here. So let's talk about some of the issues here first. First of all, Revit, and for that matter, pretty much every other building design program I've been working with recently, they really don't have a means to execute complex math, specifically for like system families. I can do some pretty complex things in component families, but when I want to take those component families and quantify them in relation to other quantities coming from other sources, Revit just doesn't have the ability to do that. So I can only really take one value and total it. I could get a total of plumbing fixtures on a floor, but I can't really figure out what I should have based on occupancy, based on the rooms that are also doing math calculations in and of themselves to figure out how many plumbing fixtures I should have on a total by level or something. So there's a lot of things you just can't get beyond the simple totals in Revit. Total something up, fantastic. Do a calculated, value in a schedule, fantastic. But you can't go beyond that and use that calculated value for the next step. So let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to use Spreadsheet Link first, and I'm going to get a bunch of information extracted out to a spreadsheet. Now, before I did this, I had to go through a little bit of setup and getting some occupancy load types put onto some of the rooms in my project so that they understood what kind of square foot was required per person. And I did another presentation earlier about that one. If you want to go find out how I did that, take a look at that on one of our YouTube channel videos up there for the Spreadsheet Link for room occupancy calculations. Beyond that, I then want to take that and using a template, I want to calculate the totals and then I want to run some additional maths based on that. And I'm going to come back around then and present that additional information in a sort of a non-standard schedule configuration. I want to present that from Spreadsheet Link back into Revit in a schedule, and I want to show you the easiest possible workflow I've come up with to help do this. I want to make sure I can retain the formatting, and I want to display some of the resulting information, some of that resulting math. So let's jump into Revit and take a look at how this is all going to be possible. So within Revit here, I've got a building in the background. I've got a couple of floor plans. I've got like a finished plan out here. Actually, let's go to the main floor plan. I don't believe I have any room tags out here right now, so if I just was going to go ahead and throw a room tag out there, I've got this room tag that just got some occupancy fixture occupancy information on it. And this is all directly based. This occupancy value is going to show up right here is going to eventually, from Spreadsheet Link, be based on my occupancy load factor that's associated to this room. So if I was to go in here and put in some kind of a load factor, it would give me some information back. If I tell it that this happens to be some kind of a business area, I can have Revit do some kind of a lookup and fill out that value, or whatever the case may be. I can do a lot of things to get that occupancy load filled out. Now I'm using actually not this value up here, this load factor here. I'm using this one down here, the occupant load factor. That's actually where I'm getting my math from. This one was left over from a previous presentation. I never got rid of it. This is a value that's actually being filled out here based on my room function. I built up a room schedule key that talks about the function of the room, in this case business areas, and based on that, it gives it a load factor of 100 square foot required per person. And in Excel, I'm going to go ahead and do the math to do the division of 125 divided by whatever that number is and rounding down to the nearest whole person, or rounding up in some cases as well. So just rounding to the nearest whole individual for that particular space. So that's going to be something I'm going to do in Spreadsheet Link. That's my first step. Now I did a full webinar on that one before. I'm going to go ahead and recreate it again today so you can see how that works, because that's kind of a pre-set-up requirement for what I'm doing here. So in Spreadsheet, or in Express Tools over here, I'm going to go to my Spreadsheet Link tool, and I'm going to build up a brand new spreadsheet going to be kicked out to Excel. And I'm going to actually open this up in Excel because that's where I'm going to do all the rest of my formatting. So let's go down here to my rooms. Let's go grab some room information. There they are, rooms, add this across. Now again, the reason I'm getting this specifically is because I want to figure out how many, say, water closets or lavatories or urinals or whatever the case may be that I need per level, per gender. And there's a couple of different calculation methods we're going to use here. I'll pull this up on the screen in just a moment to kind of see what that's going to look like. But I want to be able to do a calculation like that so I can figure out, based on what I've laid out for my building so far, what I should expect to have on a level-by-level basis based on some code numbers. So let's go ahead and build up what these fields are going to be. I have a pretty typical kind of format that I like to use. I want to use level here so I can actually filter by that eventually. I like to know what the space number is just because I like to know that. It doesn't really affect what I'm doing right now, but I like to know what the numbers and names are. It helps me kind of get a visual validation that I have the right information in case I was missing any areas. So I'm going to go ahead and include areas here. I need to include that value occupant load factor. So I have two here. I've got occupancy, but I've also got occupant. And I'm going to use the one occupant because that's the one that's going to be having the value that I want. And then finally here, there's actually going to be an occupancy that's going to be used in this list. Now this occupancy right here, this is a text value in Revit. So if we look over here, Revit's had occupancy right here for a long time. It's not actually a square foot value. If you go take a look at any of your rooms out of the box, this occupancy is a text value. And that's okay because Excel doesn't care at all about that. Now, one of the things that I have to make sure that I do is hide any kind of unit symbols because by default when I export this to my spreadsheet over here, you'll notice that my area has this SF after it all the time. And that's kind of obnoxious. It makes it a little bit difficult for me to be able to go through and run some kind of math against that unless I do extra trimming of this. So we've kind of pre-built in an ability here to hide the unit symbols inside a spreadsheet link. So now it gives you this value out as just a number, and from that, it makes it a lot easier to go over here to the occupancy and start doing some kind of math calculation. Now here for the occupancy, what I'm going to do is, run some basic math. I'm actually going to tell it here that I want this to be a calculated value, and that way I can put my value at the topmost field and have it automatically propagate down regardless of how many rooms I actually end up having in my building. I could subdivide certain rooms and create 117A and B if I wanted to do like a temporary wall split between these two, and it would still quantify inside of here automatically. Again, my whole goal here is to make this as repeatable as I can. So my simple math is going to start out with something like equals the area divided by the load factor. And of course, that's going to go through and start doing some math, but I get some areas where there's value, here because I can't do division by nothing. I'm going to get portions of people. I can't really have 9.33 people in a space, so I probably want to make sure that I do some extra work here. So first of all, I'm going to do a little quick check to see if a certain cell here, the occupant load factor, has a value. So if this equals nothing, then what I want it to do is just put nothing in that cell. Otherwise, I'm going to have it go ahead and do my math. So let's go through and redo this here, and that way it kind of strips all those values out, and that way I'm actually getting valid numbers here. And then let's go ahead and try and just start with a basic round down. So I'm going to do a round down here. I'm just using this off the top of my head. Normally I'd kick this out to Excel, but for right now, since I know what most of these are going to be looking like, I'm going to go ahead and just use this directly. All right, so when I'm doing round down, I end up with a couple of zeros in the mix here, and since I want to have at least one person in that space, I probably want to make sure that I account for that. I don't want to just do a round up because then I get too many people in certain spaces where it should actually be 4. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do round down, and I'm going to run another if statement here. So if, let's do if this round down right there, copy that. If that happens to equal 0, then what I'm going to do is just put in 1. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and do the math, and we'll see how that works. Except for I got to put another parenthesis there. Let's see here. I'm still getting a couple of zeros. Oh, you know what? It's because I put it in the wrong field. You know, that's kind of annoying. I'm going to go ahead and copy this up here, and I'll hit enter. There we go. So now it goes down, it uses that math, and it says, okay, if this value is nothing, put nothing there. That's what it does right down here. If the math that I'm trying to do, which is round down the F4, which is the area divided by my load factor, equals 0 for some reason, then it's going to go ahead and just give me one person. Otherwise, what it's going to do is do the math as I asked for it. So that's the basic configuration I'm going to do. That goes through and gives me basic, calculations on every room that has some kind of area type or building usage, and it gives me basically an occupant load factor. So in Revit, I assigned what the space usage was, which gave me the occupant load factor, and now I'm able to use that and run some intelligent math on this. So I'm going to save this spreadsheet. Save the spreadsheet. I already have one here for a spreadsheet link. I'm going to go ahead and give this a new, I'm going to use this one later on so you can see some of the more advanced things that I've done. I'm going to go ahead and call this 2015-06, what is today, 09, I believe, dash awk and fixed calcs. All right. So I've saved it out. Now it asks me if I want to open this up in the default application, which for me happens to be Excel. I'm going to go ahead and answer yes, because I need to use this information on another tab. Now normally Spreadsheet Link wants to have this Rooms tab, and that's fine, but I can have as many other tabs as I want to do other types of calculations. So I'm going to go in here and go ahead and make a new tab here. And I pulled up a website the other day. This guy right here. This is the specs and codes, and it talks about some basic information about how to calculate different types of fixture counts. And so I was looking at the water closets right here, and my first example, my first method right here, basically says I need one water closet per 500 people. It's a fairly basic calculation. Shows me what some of the math is inside of here. I've also got some drinking fountain calculations and some lav calculations. But in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and use this as my first example, and I'm going to kind of break this information out on a floor-by-floor basis. So I can get sort of totals across the whole building, but I can also get a floor-by-floor total based on what loads might be in certain areas. I could also go department by department or whatever type of filtering it is I wanted, depending on how it is I need to break this out to do my kind of calculations. For our purposes, again, today, we're going to go floor by floor. So what I'm going to do here on this first tab, I'm going to rename this so I get a better idea of what this is. I'm going to call this pfixed method 1. Okay, this is the basic 500 people equals one water closet. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this out just a little bit. I'm just going to maybe type up here water closets. Maybe I do a couple of these out here. That's kind of a little wide for this. I'm going to go ahead and merge those together. Left justify it. Maybe I go over here and I'm going to have ratio 1 per 500. So it's equal both for men and women. I'm going to go ahead and merge those as well and left justify that also. So then what I'm going to do is go in here and talk about my different levels. So what different levels do I have? Well, I've got level 1, level 4, basement level, level 2, and I kind of want to make sure I match those names. Now for me right now, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go ahead and just type those out. So I'm going to go ahead and put in basement level, and I'm going to leave myself a little room here so I can have my occupancy calculated on a level by level basis right here, and then I can use this to actually do my male and female calculations over here. So basement level, I'm going to go ahead and merge that as well. Make sure it's merged and centered. I like things to look nice so I can do some nice formatting later on. We'll do level 1, hit enter, level 2, level 3, and I believe level 4 is my last one. All right, left space 4, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and take this occupancy here and copy this down just so it can look nice. And just because I like things to be consistent, I'm going to merge and center this just to kind of make it, again, it's going to look pretty, and that's all I care about. And it's going to give me the right math as well, which I suppose I also care about, right? I need to have the male configuration here and the female. And I'm going to go ahead and take these two and copy these down. So I've got kind of a basic layout here of what I'm looking for. So right here I want to have the male plumbing fixture calculation and the female plumbing fixture calculation, so I can have both of them up here. First though, I got to do my occupancy calculations. So the way my occupancy calculation is going to go is I'm going to go ahead and run a sum based on my room information over here. So if this level over here happens to equal this level right there, then I want to sum up the total of whatever the actual area is in my building, or rather the actual occupancy in my building. So it's going to be a simple-ish sum if calculation. So it goes like this: equals sum if, and this is why I start liking to leverage Excel when I'm actually writing some of my more complex formulas, because it'll actually give me some heads-up display. So sum if, I'm going to go over here and kind of grab my rooms, and I want to say if this column right here, I'm just going to use C4 for now and cheat by putting in C:C, so it just looks the entire column. I don't have to know how many it is then. It looks for the entire column automatically. If that equals the value that I've got here in A2, which is my basement level, then what I want it to do is I want it to sum the value that's over here in my H column, which is my occupancy. And again, I'm going to cheat by going H:H. So by me doing that, what it'll do is it'll give me a sum, a total sum of how many people I have on the basement level. You're like, well, Sean, that didn't work out very good. All right, well, give me just a second here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to paste it down here to level 1. Oop, escape here. Paste this to level 1, and I'm going to make sure that this is looking, instead of at my A2, it is going to look at, let's get rid of this, it's going to look at just B4 right, or A4 right there. Okay, so in this case, it's going to go through and calculate up my totals. Let's get rid of this and make this a little more neat here. Make it just look right there. All right, so slightly shorter because it doesn't have to have the actual cell reference. It's my own cell. In case I change the name, I don't want it to freak out on me. This one here looks like it's working out just fine. So if I copy this, I should be able to just paste it right here and have it automatically update for my level 2, update for my level 3, and update for my level 4. So I'm getting my basic occupancies placed inside of here. Now, next thing that I want to do is I want to actually do my basic math here for the male and female calculations. And this is where I'm going to do some basic rounding up and using the value that's found in sum if, dividing it by 500, dividing that by 2, and rounding up to the 0 whole number here. So I'm going to say this value right here is going to equal, round up, this value. Looks like I've actually lost my connection. Oh, there it came back. Sorry guys if I lost connection for some reason, and you kind of miss out on a couple things. I do apologize. But yeah, all right. So do the basic roundup here. We're going to divide this by 500 since it's my occupancy per area divided by 500. And since I'm doing male versus female and we're considering this an equal split in the building, I'm going to divide this by 2, rounding up to the nearest whole number. All right. So that's going to give me 0, which I expected because there's 0 people on this level. That's fine, not a big deal. I'm going to copy this down, and I'm going to paste it right there. So it's exactly the same reference there of cell B3. I'm going to go here. This reference is going to go to B, what is that, 5, I believe? Yep, there we go. So I've got 1 on this level, and I'll copy this and paste it right there. This one kind of updates my cell reference there. We're going to go ahead and do B5 again. Did that one update? Nope, that one's right. That one's right. All right. So I'm just going to kind of keep this going down here. So I'm going to copy this, paste it down, B7. Copy and paste. Right, so not super spectacular, but I am getting the calculations that I want for these different areas out here. If I copy both of these, maybe I can just save myself a little bit of pasting time. There we go. And it should be doing my calculations on a level by level basis. Why is that not calculating the math? Let's try this again. B7, copy, paste. There we go. Now it's going to do it right. Now it gives me the proper cell references and saves me a little bit of time. They're both referencing here the B11 cell, which is important. So got my basic calculations out there. I can make this thing look a little more pretty if I want to, do some, you know, cell boundaries or whatever. I'm going to do this for the purpose of showing off this schedule Excel here in just a moment. Go ahead and do like a dark outline on this thing. You know, maybe I do like a light infill everywhere, and then maybe I come back and do stuff like top and bottom on these. Maybe I do slightly darker here. So format cells, we'll use like a slightly darker line, just a little bit. And same thing here. Format cells, slightly darker, right? You got to make things look good. That's just the way we work, I suppose. And we'll do a top bar on this guy here. Now this is accounting for a 4-story structure. If you did have additional stories out there, or a 5-story structure, I guess, you would have to go ahead and, you know, manually do a little bit of work inside of here, but the basic calculations already quantified as long as you have your levels accounted for in this particular spreadsheet. So, you know, I'm going to go ahead and do one more thing here just because it's kind of fun. I'm going to go ahead and sort of infill these cells back here with some kind of a light gray color just so that I can kind of see my little groupings of information here. All right. So this is my plumbing fixture method 1. Now there's 3 other different methods of doing plumbing fixture calculations, and I could certainly leverage those as well. If I save this spreadsheet here, I can use this as a template. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull up here in just a moment. I'm going to shut this one down and pull up this other spreadsheet I've got over here, which is sort of my behind the scenes Betty Crocker type spreadsheet where I've got plumbing fixture method 1. It's basically the same exact formatting and same exact math. I've got my method 2 right here, which is using a ratio here of 1 water closet per 125 males and 1 water closet per 65 females. So the number calculation is going to be a little bit different. You'll notice that right now my rooms area here is not filled out just yet. So I'd have to open up this spreadsheet and re-pull my settings so I could refill this out. No big deal. I've got a third method over here, which is using a slightly more complex calculation of 1 per 25 for the first 50 of each gender, and then 1 per 50 for each of the remaining exceeding 50. So it does a slightly more complex. This is where that nonlinear math comes into play here, right? So if I go over here, it's going to start figuring out for the males. I'm telling you what the occupancy of males is first, because I'm calculating out some base information here. And then over here it says, you know, if not, blah, 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 and it's doing some extra math to kind of figure out how to do my calculations fully for this particular type of configuration. This is where, again, that nonlinear type calculation comes into play when it's not just, you know, this divided by this equals this. It's much more complex when you have to account for 25 versus 50, for the remaining numbers and all that. If you guys want this spreadsheet, I'll be more than happy to share it with you. Feel free to put that in the comments, and then Nate will make sure that I get you guys copies of this particular spreadsheet and even my settings file for Revit, though it might not work 100% because you'll have to go through and kind of get yourself the occupant load factor property that's not there by default. But let's take a look at how this actually functions now. So we did today live the pfix method 1. I'm going to show you how method 2 and method 3 also all automatically fill themselves out, and I'm going to show you how to present this information neatly in the Revit environment. So I'm going to close this down, and spreadsheet link, I don't know if I want to save my settings before closing. I'm going to answer no because I've already saved them before. I'm going to pull spreadsheet back up again, and spreadsheet link, and I'm going to load my settings from a file. So I did actually save my settings in a previous step. I actually used the advanced save and told it which spreadsheet template I wanted it to open before it actually loaded my settings in. And that's going to be that one that has all 3 of the different methods for calculation here. So load settings from file. Here's my room calculation settings. Right here next to this in this same folder here. I don't know if I can show all files of all. No, I can't do that. Right next to this right here in my Windows directory is actually my spreadsheet sitting right next to it. And that's where it's sourcing this from. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. On my other page over here, it's extracting my information from my rooms. It's going to ask me in a moment here if I want to replace this tab. Now this tab here was set up again as a template so I could have something to look up from over here. Now it's going to replace all these fields up here, and it's going to fill it out with the information from my active project. I'm going to answer yes to that, which of course now fills all the information out. Looks very much the same as what we just did a moment ago. And if I go over here to my pfix method 1, you'll notice that that calculation is now calculating out exactly the same way it was before. Same numbers here, so there's no smoke and mirrors. Same 1 plumbing fixture per floor per gender. Now, that might be a little few, so I'm going to go over here to my method number 2 right here, and we'll see a slightly different calculation. Again, the nonlinear calculations, where it says per for the males, per 125 males, it's going to do its calculation out, you know, the total number, basically 1/2 of that number, because it's still 1/2, divided by 125. So in this case, one water closet for males, and for the women here, we've got 2 water closets. I'm doing a basic round up and doing a sum, so it's doing this divided by 65, giving me 2 down here, basically the same thing. So I'll have no fewer than 1 water closet on any level based on how I'm doing my math if I have at least 1 of each gender in the building. Now my third method over here, this is that really complex one again, where it's 1 per each 25 for the first 50, so basically 2 for the first 50, and then for every 50 remaining, or every 50 after that, it's going to do 1 water closet. So down here, my new calculation here for this one says I need to have 4 water closets for men and women, 6 on this floor, 6 on this floor, and 4 on this floor. And of course, I could make that much more complex by combining a variation of level 2, or method number 2, and method number 3 to kind of do even further nonlinear type calculations. All right, so I've got this now saved. My goal here is to publish ultimately back to my rooms so I can see what my occupancy fixture is. So as an end user is trying to do their occupancy calculations, they can do that all day long. But as a byproduct, they're also getting their fixture calculations. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this back. Apply the active worksheet back to my project. You'll notice if you look right here, there's going to be a number that's going to show up right there that has a occupancy of 1 for that particular space. It updated 124 of my spaces, or of my rooms. So I'm now going to save this spreadsheet out, and this is going to be, I'm going to save it as today's date again, 2015-0609 calculations. All right, so there's my actual resolved calculations as of this date. I'm going to go ahead and save that. I want to know if I want to open this up in Excel, and this time, you know what, I don't, because I don't care. I just wanted to get my occupancy calculations as, you know, user X, right? That's my goal. I want to get my occupancy calculations. So I've got that. I don't want to save my settings because I didn't change anything about that. But I do have now my new occupancies out here. So my training room down here, for example, 35 people available in that room. Or my sales areas here, usually generally they're about 1 per office on average. Okay, so now that I've got that, let's talk about how to get that schedule graphically represented in Revit. Because I want that good-looking schedule that I can throw on my sheet. So to do that, I'm going to go back here to Revit Express Tools, and let's take a look at this Spreadsheet Link Express, sorry, wrong tool, Schedule Excel tool. I'll talk about Spreadsheet Link Express here in a moment. But Schedule Excel, this is the second half. Oh, fantastic. My Revit decided to be angry with me. I'm going to go ahead and synchronize this model real quick here. And let me cancel this actually. I'm going to do a save as, so I don't overwrite my actual project here. I'm going to save this to my desktop real quick. I like to have a snapshot of my model. My Revit decided to just puke on me right now in the middle of a presentation, which makes me happy. So let's go ahead and options, 1 backup, make this the central, and I'm going to go ahead and save this out. And once that's done, almost done saving, we're going to shut down Revit and restart it, just because every once in a while my Revit gets angry because I do way too many presentations and I leave it open all day long, and I probably shouldn't do that. You guys all are like, oh, Sean, you tell us don't leave Revit open all day long, and then you do it. I know. It's what I do, I guess, huh? That's that whole do what I say, not as I do thing, right? All right, so as Revit's opening back up here, my ultimate goal, once again, is to get my spreadsheet to represent in my Revit project as a link. So if my space sizes change or occupancies floor by floor, department by department change, then those numbers can be updated again on the fly. And Schedule Excel is a wonderful tool for that workflow. So let's go back here to Revit Express Tools, Schedule Excel right here. It's going to pop open the Schedule Excel interface, and I don't have any spreadsheets linked in just yet. That's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and add a spreadsheet, add an Excel file. I'm going to open up a file, specifically that calculations that we just kicked out today as of 12:28 Central Time. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. You'll notice that I've got a couple of tabs inside of here. So I can cycle between any of these tabs. I can take a look at any one that I want. I'm going to take method 3 for right now, and I want this one to be represented in my Revit environment. So I'm going to take this one. It's going to be linked in to plumbing fixture method 3 view. I'm going to go ahead and tell it, okay, let's link that in. Schedule Excel on my other monitor over there is actually running the process of linking it. It's going to create for me a schedule right here, and this is what it represents as. Shows me the similar backgrounds here. I guess I didn't put my borders between my cells right there, but do have my borders over here. Actually, my spreadsheet doesn't have that in there. I guess I left them out. But it does have all the formatting that I've got. All my merged cells, these are all properly merged. Ultimately, this is a schedule, so I can throw this on as many sheets as I wanted to, or I could just put it on a cover sheet or, primary architectural floor plan sheet. But this is a link, and it's automatically updating. So if anybody else in the project decides they need to go through for whatever reason, and they need to rerun their occupancy calculations to acquire new occupancies, I can get those occupancies automatically because this is a link. So if I shut this down, and let's see, my current level 1 has 142 people on it. My calculations over here might not change too much, but it's got 142. So if I go to my level 1 right now, and I take this training room, for example, and I tell it that this is not an assembly room, that this just has no information whatsoever, my occupant load factor goes to nothing. That's going to take my room calculation right here and make it 0. So if I go back to my Revit Express tools and I recall up Spreadsheet Link, or I could use Spreadsheet Link Express as well if I wanted to, if I had set my process up for that in the first place, because Spreadsheet Link Express knows how to open up my settings file, apply my room value, and then it can also save a spreadsheet out automatically if I want to. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do this manually so you can see this happen. So load my settings from a file, open up my room calculations once again, so it opens up that same file, that same template, which is blank right now, and it's going to rip through my project. It's going to re-extract my rooms. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to overwrite my information here, and there was a training room in the mix here that now has nothing for its occupant load factor. So its occupancy over here will have nothing as well. Used to be 13 people or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. Or 31 people, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and resave this spreadsheet back out to my calculations. Save that. Yes, I want to replace it. No, I don't want to open it. I am going to apply my active worksheet to my project so that it actually updates my room properly with the correct calculation. It updated 1 because it was only 1 room that I modified. I'll shut this down. So that now is empty. If we go back over to that schedule, which was my plumbing fixture method 3, again, we still have the 142 right now, but let's go through the process of updating this because, again, this is a link, so this responds just like every link would in any Revit or AutoCAD program. If you're in the program live, something changes, you have to manually reload it. If I was to shut down Revit again and reopen it, it would actually automatically reload that on opening, just like normal links would work. For me right now, I'm going to go to my scheduled Excel link management interface, and I'm going to update this one. It's currently out of date. Notice it even tells you that it's out of date. This is not the same information. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to update. My calculation's already done there. It says 107. In this case, it gives me the new calculations for people, and it gives me, if it needed to, any kind of new calculation over here for whatever plumbing fixtures I would need. So this is basically automatic. I don't have to ever do that link again. It's already here in my project, provided that my levels are the same, right? So that's kind of a full workflow here. So how you can do some non-linear calculations for things like water closets, for drinking fountains, for a number of different things, you can run through and do those types of calculations in Revit, basically. Well, not directly in Revit. You're using Spreadsheet Link, but the results can be directly viewed in Revit. So you can certainly get some of that more complex maths involved in your actual calculations for occupancies, for gross areas, for rentable areas. Want to do some BOMA calculations? You could do it right there. If you want to do some building, occupancy maintenance agreement kind of stuff, get that done directly in Spreadsheet Link and present it back to your project using something like Spreadsheet Link Express. It's absolutely attainable. The math is all there. All right, with that, what I'm going to do is turn this back over to Nate. I'm not noticing any questions pop through, which actually greatly surprised me, other than the fact that I had that little technical difficulty in the middle. But I'm going to, oh wait, there's a question that just popped in right now. There's a question that said, since we're also familiar with Kobe, could we also use this sort of spreadsheet link environment possibly for Kobe for presenting the information back to Revit? And the answer is yes, yes you can. In fact, we used to have a tool that was the Kobe toolkit. Autodesk really vamped up their toolkit, so we stopped developing ours, but the spreadsheet link tool environment can still export the information out to Excel so that when a user goes through and manipulates it or modifies it, you can round trip that right back into Revit. Any value that's editable in Revit should pretty much, I can't say any value, but for the most part, most values that are editable in Revit should be editable in the spreadsheet as well. Anything that is not editable in Revit, we gray out and actually lock down in the spreadsheet cells so users can't accidentally kind of fill them out. So then there was another question that popped up and says, if I change the size of a room, does my tag adjust with the calculations? And the answer is yes, sort of. Obviously, I have to run the math manually for it to do its calculations, right? If I grab this room right here and I reassociate this to that assembly without fixed seats, I think it was tables and chairs. Yeah, that's what I wanted. So that gives me that 15 square foot required per person. So this value updates automatically. Now, my tag doesn't actually update until I run my Spreadsheet Link or my Spreadsheet Link Express workflow here. So if I rerun Spreadsheet Link Express, I could go through and have a user browse for my settings here, open those up, and as they run that, what it'll do is know to save my document out, that spreadsheet out to a certain location. In this case, it didn't actually import anything because I didn't put an import underneath anything, so it didn't change it. I suppose I have to use my Spreadsheet Link. I didn't modify my spreadsheet appropriately to make it so it knew how to import stuff properly here. So let me reload my settings here, calculations. It's going to run through my project, re-grab my information here. So it is important for me to rerun my Spreadsheet Link because that's how it's actually running that calculation. So I'm going to overwrite this and just apply this back, apply my active, oh wait, cancel, apply my active worksheet, have it update that one room. So there's my one room updated here. That's because, again, that training room now has that 15 square foot on it, so it gives me the 35 users, or 33, whichever it was. I would probably want to save this back out again so I could get my calculation spreadsheet out there to do what it was supposed to do. So I'll save that, and I'll shut this down. But that's how this gets updated. So a user can update all of their rooms across their entire project very rapidly. Don't have to, but they can, and that's just because you can't actually tag and schedule the occupancy on a room if that value is being automatically calculated because it's a system family. I can't make my own calculated value that shows up over here that's a taggable value. This also, by the way, is a text-based field. Again, I can type out whatever I want. So I'm using my Spreadsheet Link workflow to actually fill that out so that users don't just put in some stupid value. It actually ends up being what the calculation is supposed to be. And if they fudge it and fake it, then my Spreadsheet Link, again, fixes that as well. So the answer is, does my calculations in my tags update with the size of the room? Well, yes, if I'm using the Spreadsheet Link tool.